Hello, I'm Anita McVeigh and this is The Context on BBC News. World Cup controversy. President Trump confirms he asked FIFA to review the one-match suspension of the United States top scorer.
That's very unfair. It's one thing to penalize somebody for the game, but how do you penalize them for a game that hasn't been played yet? It's very unfair.
FIFA rejects Belgium's appeal and Folarin Balogun will line up for Team USA as Gianni Infantino insists the decision is independent. UK fighter jets intercept a Russian maritime patrol aircraft after it repeatedly approached an aircraft carrier in the Norwegian Sea. And Prince Harry has arrived in the UK. He says the King's decision to withdraw an offer to stay at Buckingham Palace is disappointing. President Trump has confirmed he intervened personally to ask for a review after America's top striker, Folarin Balogun, was suspended from tonight's World Cup match against Belgium after receiving a red card in the previous game. Donald Trump said it was unfair for FIFA to stop one of America's best players taking part in the crucial match and confirmed that he had asked FIFA's boss to review the suspension, saying it wasn't a foul and claiming that the referee was, quote, very suspect. There has been widespread criticism of FIFA's decision, but the FIFA boss has insisted that its judicial bodies are independent. Well, in 4 hours' time, Belgium will face the USA in the last round of 16, and the United States striker will be playing, as Jane Dougal reports.
This is the incident that's caused uproar in football and politics. Folarin Balogun, the USA's top scorer for the tournament, was sent off in their World Cup match against Bosnia and Herzegovina, which means an automatic suspension for the next game.
Because it's for winners only.
But Donald Trump has openly admitted he called the head of FIFA, Gianni Infantino, to discuss the incident, and incredibly, FIFA then suspended the match ban.
I spoke to Gianni, who's highly respected, who's produced the most successful World Cup in history. I asked for a review because I didn't think it was a foul. And, again, I'm good at this stuff. I didn't think it was a foul. I thought it was two great athletes that crashed into each other. I didn't tell him what to do. I can't tell him what to do. But and I don't believe he made the decision. I think it was a committee that made the decision.
President Trump has forged a strong relationship with Gianni Infantino, the head of football's governing body, even creating a peace prize to award to him.
Mr. Donald J. Trump.
Following the phone call, FIFA invoked a little-known article in its rules to suspend the red card for a year, thus reinstating the player.
It's just fundamentally wrong and terrible for football. To hear what apparently has happened between President Trump or his people and Infantino is absolutely amazing and disgraceful.
The governing body for European football, UEFA, said the reinstatement had crossed a red line and went on to say, "We express our disbelief at such an unprecedented, incomprehensible and unjustifiable decision." The USA are scheduled to play Belgium in a few hours' time. They are furious that Balogun can their 3-2 win over Mexico in the early hours of this morning. The concern is that FIFA's action could set a precedent.
Where does this start and where does this end now? Can we overturn it or not overturn it?
Infantino has responded on social media saying, "I did receive a call from President Donald Trump. During our conversation, I explained that there was an ongoing legal process involving FIFA's independent judicial bodies and that the case would be decided in due course." President Trump has stayed away from this World Cup so far, but now his involvement threatens to undermine the integrity of the game. Jane Dougal, BBC News.
Meanwhile, England have reached the quarter-finals of the World Cup after an epic victory over co-hosts Mexico at the Azteca Stadium. The Three Lions had to play most of the second half with 10 men after their defender Jarell Quansah was given a red card, but 2 goals from Jude Bellingham and a penalty from Harry Kane put them through. Bad weather delayed the game, so it finally kicked off at 2 a.m. Well, the England team are now back at their base in Kansas City in the US. Our correspondent Alex Howell is there.
The team arrived back to the hotel behind me in the early hours and have got a scheduled 2 days rest, which is really needed after the fast-paced nature of the last 2 rounds. And they've got a bit of time now to prepare with that quarter-final with Norway on Saturday. And all the focus and the match has already been billed as a battle between 2 of the world's best strikers in captain Harry Kane and Norway and Manchester City striker Erling Haaland. Haaland has scored 7 goals in this tournament already, and that's level with Lionel Messi of Argentina and France's Kylian Mbappe. Harry Kane has scored 6 in all of but one of England's games to help them reach this stage. So after those 2 rest days, the team will be back in training, and Thomas Tuchel will be coming up with a game plan about how best he can stop Erling Haaland scoring against England.
And I'll give you a sit-rep on the latest World Cup blockbuster showdown because Spain and Portugal, those regional rivals, are battling for a place in the next stage of the tournament. It's half-time and the score is currently 0-0. And let me just tell you that we are going to be talking more about this story in a few minutes' time with our panel of guests, so do stay with us for that. Now let's get some of the day's other news. And the Ukrainian Air Force says a serious shortage of air defense missiles meant none of the 23 ballistic missiles fired by Russia at Kyiv last night were shot down. At least 23 people have been killed after Russia launched a wave of missiles as well as drones at the capital and its surrounding areas. A week after resident doctors in England agreed to end their long-running strike action over pay and jobs, consultants have voted to go on strike over pay and pensions. The senior doctors last walked out 3 years ago. The British Medical Association said 76% of consultants said in a ballot they were willing to walk out over the next 12 months. Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News. Let's return now to our lead story, the red card row over President Trump's call to FIFA President Gianni Infantino, after which the red card handed to US star striker Folarin Balogun was suspended, meaning he is able to play against Belgium in the game due to get underway in Seattle in a few hours' time. Well, joining me now to take an in-depth look at the situation is Sven Klaas, a Belgian football journalist. We're hoping also to have another panellist with us. He isn't able to join just at the moment, but Sven, we're very happy to have you with us now to talk about this situation. And I imagine everyone there is talking about it.
Yeah, of course. When the news came in yesterday morning, everybody was really flabbergasted, was really surprised that it could happen. And then at this point in the World Cup, it's really remarkable. And before yesterday, nobody knew about the famous Article 27, but now everyone is talking about it, also due to the phone call of the American president. And yeah, it's really crazy. Not only Belgium is talking about it, Belgium sports, but also Belgium politics, and now the entire world is talking about it. And we'll have a focus on this game.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to bring such huge attention on the game beyond what would already have been a great focus on this meet-up between one of the hosts, the USA, and Belgium. Just going back to that Article 27, FIFA's Article 27, just tell us exactly what it says.
Yeah, that there is a possibility that there is a committee who can have a look at the cars at the World Cup. It's really crazy that they use it now there's a lot of people are angry about it at this moment, and it also, like you said in your news broadcast, that it's about the integrity of modern football, and it changes the rules. It really crosses a red line at this moment because, what is certain at this moment, nobody knows, and even what will happen now, when America will proceed in the World Cup, will they use it again? So there are a lot of question marks at this moment.
And in terms of the Belgian footballing authorities, have they received any detail from FIFA about the reasoning for the decision to lift the suspension on the US team's star striker?
No, still not. We're 4 hours before kickoff, and they still hadn't had any information. Of course, they could appeal, but it looked like an appeal, but it was never an appeal. Of course, it was admissible because they were not a part of the proceedings. Of course, the decision has been made, and we had to do it. So that doesn't feel right at this moment for nobody, and that's also at this moment that we have the support not only for the Belgian national team, but from the entire world. To support the Belgian team in a few hours.
So Folarin Balogun is going to be on the pitch, we understand. What difference do you think that is going to make to the Belgian team in terms of their mentality, as they walk out of that tunnel onto the pitch for, what is the biggest tournament clearly in football, a huge arena with all of this swirling around them in the background? Do you think it's going to have a positive impact or a negative impact on them?
Yeah, it's of course difficult to say. Everyone knows Balogun also from his team AS Monaco. He had a good tournament, also a good season at Monaco. He's playing really well also now at the World Cup with 3 goals. So it would also be better that he didn't play, of course. And we have a full stadium against us tonight. 70,000 people will cheer against us, but we will see for the impact. Some say it will give the Belgian national team some fuel, but to be honest, they don't need it. There are a lot of star quality players like Kevin De Bruyne, Thibaut Courtois, Romelu Lukaku, image of the World Cup, because we have to be honest, there are some question marks about that at this moment.
OK, well, I'm pleased about how this might make a difference to the mentality of the Belgian team as they go onto the pitch in a few hours' time. With Balogun reinstated for this game, what difference do you think it's going to make to the US team?
This is really. Said it won't have any impact.
Sven, this question is to Leander. Apologies if there was any confusion.
This has turned this World Cup on its head for the United States. They had been counting down to this tournament for years and years and years since they were assigned hosting rights along with Mexico and Canada in 2018. And this is supposed to be a big coming out party for the sport. Just as it was in 1994, they hoped that this tournament would really help the sport break through into the American mainstream, and everything was geared towards that. And of course, they were very happy to have a generation of players that were unprecedented in their pedigree and talent. The US had played really well early on in the tournament, and now suddenly this happens. And all this positive energy and all these kind of good vibes around the team have been, I don't want to say ruined necessarily, but there's this huge cloud over the team. Suddenly, US manager Mauricio Pochettino, lately of Tottenham Hotspur and Chelsea, actually said, we are not the victims here, but we're also not the aggressors, right? He kind of said, that we didn't do this, we didn't ask for this. And so there's a very strange asterisk behind this game. And I was at the press conference after Belgium-Norway yesterday, where the Norwegian manager said, I kind of feel bad for the US, because even if they beat Belgium, and that's a big question mark, because in March, Belgium beat the US 5-2 in a friendly, and the Belgians knocked out the Americans at the 2014 World Cup in Brazil. Even if the US manages to win that game, there's always going to be some kind of tainted sense about it.
And Leander, I believe there are a number of examples from the past where FIFA has reacted quite robustly against attempted political intervention by other countries with regards to their national football team. Can you give us an example of that?
FIFA has always been very consistent in this. If there is interference from national governments in the running of affairs in football, then they can go as far as suspending the national team from international competition. It has happened before. It has happened to African teams. It has happened to some Balkan teams, I believe. And so by the strict reading of those rules, and if they were consistent in their application, there would be a strong case to be made that this United States men's national team should be disqualified from this tournament and U.S. soccer put on some kind of probation. But of course, there seem to be different rules for different teams at this World Cup because that's the way business is done under Gianni Infantino.
So Sven, listening to those examples that Leander was mentioning, do you have any doubt in your mind that if it had not been for President Trump's intervention in this situation, Balogun would not be back on the pitch?
Yeah, I think we can all agree on that, that it would never have happened. And maybe it should be better for the USA if they got kicked out of the tournament tonight, because what will happen for the next game and what will happen with the next red card, it will only give more question marks for the future of the tournament. And that's not good for the image of world football.
Yeah, there could be a lot of knock-on impacts, a domino effect, if you like. Well, Sven and Leander, thank you so much for discussing that with me on The Context here on BBC News. Really interesting to talk to you, Sven Claes and Leander Charlekens. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
And let's return now to... we're not returning, actually, to the red card row. I think we've just had quite a long discussion on that. We are talking instead about UK fighter jets, which have been intercepted. I beg your pardon, they intercepted a Russian maritime patrol aircraft after it repeatedly approached a carrier strike group in the Norwegian Sea. The Ministry of Defence said the Russian Bear F plane passed at low altitude and, quote, unnecessarily close to the aircraft carrier HMS Prince of Wales. It's believed to have dropped 10 tracking devices into the water. Well, the NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte was asked about the Russian spy plane during a press conference in Ankara ahead of the NATO summit.
Your country, the United Kingdom, did exactly what needed to be done. And let me commend the British military for the actions they took. That's part one of my reaction to your question. Part two is that it also shows the unprofessionalism of the Russians. Willing to do this so close to the ship, of course, that's reckless. It's unprofessional. And again, the UK armed forces did exactly what they needed to do. And this is evidence that we will defend ourselves.
Let's speak now to Professor Justin Bronk, Senior Research Fellow for Air Power and Military Technology at RUSI, the Royal United Services Institute. Thank you very much for joining us today. What can you tell us about this particular Russian plane and its capabilities?
So this aircraft is called a Tupolev 142, Bear F in NATO code terms. It's an adaptation of the very long-in-the-tooth Russian strategic nuclear bomber, the Tu-95, for anti-submarine and maritime patrol. And it's something which NATO air forces and the UK, the RAF and Royal Navy in particular, encounter semi-regularly, particularly in the North Sea and up towards the Arctic. But normally not with this sort of direct, unprofessional and pretty provocative flight behaviour from the Russians. Yeah,
put that into context for us. Just how unusual and how provocative was this repeated approach to the military strike group?
So if you consider an aircraft carrier task group, in this case the Prince of Wales, is essentially a mobile airport, and it is operating flights on a regular basis, both helicopters and fixed-wing jets, in this case our F-35Bs, so the fighters. And therefore there is a traffic control pattern, if you like, around the carrier strike group as it travels, just as there would be around any civilian airport or military airbase. And so by flying directly through that repeatedly at low level, including dropping, in this case, sonobuoys, so dropping objects in large numbers with no communication and ignoring repeated warnings, this is more than unprofessional from the Russians. It's very deliberately provocative, as is evidenced by the fact that normally when NATO pilots encounter Russian military aircraft, the Russians are normally perfectly professional and safe. So when, as in this case, they are not, it's usually because they've been instructed to, i.e. it's a choice to signal. by that unprofessional and potentially unsafe behaviour.
And the tracking devices that were dropped into the water, 10 of them, we're told. Give us a bit more information about that.
So these are sonobuoys. So they are essentially microphones or active sonar, so that you can have passive, which are just microphones, or active sonobuoys, which essentially make sonar pings like a submarine would do. And those are normally laid over areas where one nation suspects that another nation's submarines are operating, or single submarine, and they would be laid in sort of fields or lines, a bit like a net, with the aim that when the opposing submarine inadvertently travels close to one of the passive ones, or potentially is close enough to an active one when it pings as it's dropped, that will allow the aircraft that is circling the Maritime Patrol aircraft to locate that submarine and then either drop more buoys to maintain contact as the submarine tries to maneuver over time, or drop a torpedo to attack it if it's gone to that extent.
Okay.
In this case, no reason to be doing that around the close confines of the carrier group.
OK, well, given the debate on defence spending here in the UK and a number of incidents involving Russian military assets in the air and seas around the UK, a really interesting story. Thank you very much, Professor Justin Bronk from RUSI. Now, Prince Harry has arrived in the UK hours after Buckingham Palace said he would not be staying there during his visit, even though his team had earlier announced that he would. Royal sources said he had not formally responded to the offer of accommodation by the deadline at the end of last week. A spokesperson for the Prince called the decision disappointing. Our royal correspondent Noor Nanji is at Buckingham Palace.
Well, I think it's fair to say things have gotten very messy very quickly, with apparently a war of words taking place behind the scenes. So first things this morning, Prince Harry's spokesperson said that he had accepted an offer to stay here at Buckingham Palace during his trip to London this week. But then shortly afterwards, Buckingham Palace said no, he would not be staying here this week after all. Now, royal sources say that Prince Harry had not responded to an offer for him to stay at a royal residence by the deadline, which was the end of last week, and that he was informed over the weekend that he would not be able to stay here at Buckingham Palace after all. Now, it is understood that the palace does require a minimum notice period to ensure that somebody can stay here, and also that there were some concerns about the prospect of Prince Harry staying here at the palace in the very same week that the judgment in his case against Associated Newspapers is due back. Now, Prince Harry's spokesperson for their part have said that they understand that that offer to stay here at Buckingham Palace has now been withdrawn, and that is a decision that they describe as disappointing. Now, of course, all of this comes amid the constant back and forth over whether Meghan and the two children, Archie and Lilibet, will also accompany Prince Harry during this trip to the UK. Prince Harry has spoken previously about his desire for a reconciliation with the wider royal family, including in a BBC News interview last year. I think the trouble is that people will be looking for any signs of division, and here potentially is another one.
Well, let's talk now to Jack Royston, Chief Royal Correspondent at Newsweek. Jack, hello to you. So much confusion over Prince Harry's accommodation and the communication that was going back between his side and the royals here. Why do you think that's happened?
Well, I think Harry basically didn't actually want to stay at Buckingham Palace. He was hoping that another residence would be made available. There were a number of drawbacks to Buckingham Palace. One is that it's obviously constantly inundated with tourists. But also, I happen to know that Harry's team were quite upset that they believe, anyway, Buckingham Palace leaked to the media the fact that that's the particular residence they were looking at. And they were concerned that that meant that anybody who might want to do harm to the Sussexes, or alternatively the paparazzi, would then turn up there and wait for them, basically, and try to find them. So they had been lobbying, I think, for another residence, and Harry had actually been making representations to his father, to the palace, to say, you know, actually Buckingham Palace is not a preferable location. It then got to Saturday, and obviously Harry sent written communication indicating he was going to turn down the offer. And so then when he then rode back on that and reversed and said actually he did want to take it up, I think a part of it is genuinely that they just were fed up with him. But at the same time, they have offered these two explanations: one, that he was too late, and two, that they were concerned about the overlap with the judgment that we're expecting tomorrow afternoon in Harry's court case against the Daily Mail. Now, no doubt there is, some genuine concern there, but I think, viewers would be forgiven for thinking that there might also be a little bit of generalised frustration probably on both sides.
So what does this all mean then? And lots of people want to know the answer to this question for the possibility of a meeting between Prince Harry and his father, the King, let alone his wife and children potentially arriving to see their grandfather.
Well, my information is that in the Sussex camp, they have not ruled this out. They still think and hope that this is a possibility and that it could happen. But, they are only one half of that conundrum. And the other half, obviously, is the palace. Now, if Buckingham Palace do genuinely think that this judgment we're expecting tomorrow in the Daily Mail court case creates a constitutional problem for the King that prevented him offering a stay at Buckingham Palace to Harry, then it would follow logically that he also kind of can't have a face-to-face meeting with him either. It's not totally clear how long that would persist for. Would it cover the whole week that Harry and Meghan are here? My information is that the Sussexes have deliberately put quite a few different openings and vacancies in the schedule, so there are a number of options available. It may be that they can come up with a particular time after a couple of days have passed when perhaps the palace feel that the news cycle has moved on from whatever happens in this case.
OK, Jack, thank you very much for that. Jack Royston, Chief Royal Correspondent at Newsweek. We have got sport coming up for you, so do stay with us here on The Context on BBC News.
Hello. It's been a hot start to the new working week, with temperatures widely reaching the 30s across a good chunk of the Midlands, central southern England, East Anglia and the southeast. The highest temperature I saw during the day, 33 across parts of the Greater London area. Further north, a big contrast in the weather. A lot of cloud in Scotland with rain into the northwest. That was courtesy of a weather front, and here it will continue to be quite damp through the night. Further patches of rain. Still some mist and murk and low cloud lurking around some of our Irish Sea coasts. It will be quite a warm night, temperatures eventually coming down to between 14 and 18 Celsius. So we're already off to a relatively warm start to the day on Tuesday. Still a lot of cloud for Scotland, still a few splashes of rain here, but the clouds should thin and break for Northern Ireland and Northern England with some sunny spells. Best of the sunshine for Wales, the Midlands, East Anglia, Southern England. Temperatures perhaps a smidge down, but 31 is still hot across the southeast of England. Beyond that, as we head into Wednesday, the sunnier skies should start to push northwards into Scotland and Northern Ireland, boosting the temperatures here more widely into the low to mid-20s. The highest temperatures, though, further south, and we could see temperatures hit around about 33 or 34 in the hottest areas on Wednesday. That heat continues to build, and by Thursday we could be looking at highs reaching maybe as 34 or 35. It will start to feel increasingly humid around the coasts of England and Wales.
I'm on an epic trip across America, marking 250 years since the Declaration of Independence. Taking in Chicago's soul food, meeting the Cowboys of Utah, seeing the ever-changing city of Las Vegas, and over for a unique perspective of San Francisco's Golden Gate Bridge. That's the travel show in America on BBC News.
Los Angeles is hosting 8 World Cup matches, and while FIFA says they want this to be a celebration of the beautiful game, this tournament has been marred by controversy, from eye-watering ticket prices to visa and immigration concerns. For stories on and off the pitch, join me, Shaima Khalil, on BBC News.
Ukraine has been increasing its drone attacks across Russia, trying to force it into peace talks. It's been hitting targets in Moscow, St. Petersburg, and now Crimea, which Russia annexed illegally 12 years ago. That land is very important politically and personally to Vladimir Putin. So how will he respond? Join us here on BBC News.
If you can't be at a game for this World Cup, this could be the next best thing. I'm in Los Angeles, visiting one of the most immersive sports bars on Earth. This is COSM, with its planetarium-style screen, stadium seating, and spatial audio. fans are right in the action.
Feels like you're in whatever arena or stadium it is that team is playing in.
Direct from pitchside, 180-degree 8K cameras beam multiple angles live into the venue. A 12K LED screen and 72-channel audio stream all add to the realism.
I think the World Cup here will be great. That's a grand type of game, so this is a grand screen. I think it matches up perfectly. I think it'll be dope.
Watch on BBC iPlayer.
Hello, I'm Anita McVeigh and this is The Context on BBC News. World Cup controversy. President Trump confirms he asked FIFA to review the one-match suspension of the US's top scorer. And on that note, it's time for a look at today's sport now with Mark Benstead. Mark, so much happening on and off the pitch.
Certainly is. Good evening, Anita. Yes, there is action in Arlington tonight with another World Cup quarter-final spot up for grabs. It is Spain who are taking on Portugal just now. Nearly 70 minutes gone and still goalless. Spain, of course, yet to concede a goal in the entire tournament, although Portugal did hit the bar in the first half through Nuno Mendes. As you mentioned, President Donald Trump has confirmed that he asked FIFA to review United States striker Folarin Balogun's one-match suspension at the World Cup. Balogun has scored 3 goals in the tournament so far, but was sent off in the United States win over Bosnia last time out. Now, that would normally mean an immediate ban, but his one-game suspension has now been suspended following an intervention by the US president. That means he is now available for their meeting with Belgium in the early hours of Tuesday morning. US head coach Mauricio Pochettino praised FIFA's decision. That's provoked a strong reaction across the footballing world. England boss Thomas Tuchel says it's led to total confusion over the disciplinary process, while his Norway counterpart Ståle Solbakken described it as a big mistake. FIFA had been asked to explain or publish their decision, which has also been criticised by former England players Wayne Rooney, Joe Hart and Michael Richards.
To have it suspended for a year just makes a mockery of the whole tournament. Because, like you said, if that happens again tonight, then someone else is going to be saying, well, you did it for one, you've done it for Ronaldo. All this is basically to keep the big stars in the competition.
When do the World Cup qualifiers start for the USA? So it mightn't even affect anything in terms of him missing a World Cup qualifier.
Yeah.
So it's not going to affect anything to do with the World Cup.
Yeah.
Because the suspension will be over after the year, in a year's time. So it's basically, it's brushed away because it's not going to affect anything.
None of this needed to be a conversation. No one would have questioned it. All right, it was a bit disappointing that he was going to miss the game, but the red card was the red card.
Yeah, we've got to be honest about the situation. It's left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, as it should as well, because when the integrity comes into question for a tournament that this is this big, the World Cup, all the stories we've talked about, and then for that to happen, it's just not good enough.
A night of joy for England last night following their dramatic win over Mexico. However, now some bad news to report from the camp. Jordan Henderson's tournament looks to be over. The Brentford midfielder slipped on one of the advertising hoardings during the post-match celebrations and has badly injured his wrist. He stayed in Mexico City for treatment as the rest of the squad returned to their training base in Kansas City. And to tennis quickly, where Britain's Arthur Ferry continued his outstanding Wimbledon run with a 5-set comeback victory over Grigor Dimitrov to reach the quarter-finals and make history. Ferry has been the only British player left in either singles draw since the second round and kept home hopes alive with a dramatic win in front of a packed centre court. The world number 114 was making his debut on Wimbledon's biggest stage, just a short walk from where he grew up, and showed remarkable resilience throughout to achieve the biggest win of his career.
It's been the story of the tournament for me. I was really close to losing my last round as well, and again today a breakdown in the fourth. Just trying to keep fighting, keep having a good attitude, committing to what I'm trying to do on the court, and managed to pay off. I'm playing really well against with my back against the wall, and again paid off today.
A brilliant effort. That's all sport for just now.
Okay, Mark, thank you very much for that. And welcome to the political context now with BBC Newsnight's political editor Nick Watt, who is here as ever to take us through the week's events and expectations. So, first question then is about Nigel Farage. The government has accepted the findings of a review of political funding. Just explain, first of all, what that review encompassed and how it links to Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform UK, of course, who's been in the headlines.
Well, Anita, as you say, Nigel Farage has been in the headlines this weekend over his financing, because the Sunday Times had the scoop that George Cottrell, known as Posh George, he's an aristocrat who helped Nigel Farage with costs towards staffing, security and housing. And of course, George Cottrell pleaded guilty to a single charge of wire fraud in the United States and served 8 months in jail. Important to say that funding was before Nigel Farage stood for Parliament, and previously we had the revelation that Christopher Harborne, who's a Thai-based crypto billionaire, gave $5 million to Nigel Farage, again before he stood for Parliament. And crucially, what Nigel Farage says is, under the rules of the House of Commons, I don't need to declare these because they were not related to my work as an MP. Obviously, that's a huge issue for debate. So the Harborne issue is being looked at by the Parliamentary Standards Commission. Now, as you're saying, Anita, the government had commissioned Philip Rycroft, who's a former senior civil servant, to look into what he described was it's a review into countering foreign financial influence and interference in UK politics. Here we are. We got that response today. We'll talk in a minute about the Reform UK response. They think it was a bit of a hit job on them. But Samantha Dixon, who is the relevant minister, she gave her response, and she said that they're going to introduce a £100,000 cap on donations from overseas electors. Then she says there's a minimum residency period where an overseas elector returns to the UK. Then if you're living overseas but you never registered outside the UK, you'll also face that restriction. And obviously they're saying, as previously announced, there'll be a moratorium on all political donations of any amount made via cryptocurrency. Who has made a donation from cryptocurrency? That, of course, would be that $5 million from Christopher Harborne. So why don't we listen to what Samantha Dixon had to tell MPs?
This is a serious and substantial package of reform. It will bring more transparency to political finance. It will tighten donation rules. It will strengthen enforcement. This response shows the government acting now, where action is needed, a government prepared to do the long-term work to keep our systems secure. I thank Philip Rycroft for his important work. Yeah. The government will now move swiftly to implement his recommendations. The people of the UK must know their elections are free, fair and protected from foreign interference.
So, Nick, tell us more about that response from Reform UK that you mentioned.
Well, as I was saying, obviously the Parliamentary Standards Commissioner is looking at the way in which Nigel Farage handled the declaration around that and whether that was the right thing. As I was saying, that Christopher Harborne is a crypto billionaire, but that $5 million may have been crypto, may not have been. But what the Commissioner is looking at is, should Nigel Farage have registered that? Now, in that statement from Samantha Dixon, we didn't hear any mention of Reform UK, but Reform UK basically believed that the government has done a hit job on them, and that was the point that Richard Tice, the Reform Deputy Leader, made in the House of Commons.
Well, I mean, this desperate Labour government will stop at nothing, Madam Deputy Speaker, to stop the rise of Reform UK, from trying to cancel elections, from donations, from changing voting systems in Manchester. If this government is truly concerned about undue influence, has she discussed these proposals with the Cayman Island hedge fund called Quadrature that was the largest donator, 4 million quid in 2024 to the Labour government, or the 8 companies that have donated £500,000, and sure enough, they've had almost £150 million of government contracts since.
Well said. Any political party that abides by the rules that we're introducing will be able to flourish in our political system. If they don't, Madam Deputy Speaker, they can be expected to be held very firmly to account.
Pretty lively exchange there in Parliament, Nick. Let's move on and talk now about the NATO summit. That's due to get underway tomorrow, Tuesday, in Ankara. Do you think that there's any concern amongst the Downing Street team about what President Trump might say about the UK and Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister?
Yeah, so this is looking like it is obviously Keir Starmer's last big outing on the world stage. And where there is nervousness in government is that a year ago at the last NATO summit, Keir Starmer said that the UK would spend 3.5% of its GDP on core defence budget, and he said with a target date of 2035. Now, when we recently got the Defence Investment Plan, John Healey, it was slightly improved from when John Healey resigned, but John Healey is essentially saying that it looks like we're only reaching 3% of GDP on defence by 2034, 2035, and his view is that that is reneging on a commitment that Keir Starmer gave a year ago. So the nerves would be that Donald Trump, who is highly critical of European powers for not spending enough on defence, and who's become pretty critical of Keir Starmer, might pick up on that and say, wait a minute, you lost your defence secretary because your defence secretary said you are not doing what you told me you would do a year ago. Now look, leaders are beginning to gather in Ankara. Mark Rutte, who's the Secretary General of the NATO, he was talking today, and he was being Mr. Diplomacy.
After years of underinvestment, we are producing real capabilities. European allies and Canada are now on a trajectory to equalize the defense spending with the United States. And not just that, they are taking on more leadership within NATO's command and control structure, stepping up on conventional defense, on efforts to bolster our deterrence and defense, including along the entire eastern flank in the Baltic region and the Arctic, and spearheading support to Ukraine. All of this is evidence of a real shift in mindset. A stronger Europe in a stronger NATO.
And Keir Starmer has been under a lot of pressure politically at home, hasn't he, over the question of how much will be spent on defence going forward. But ultimately, all of those sums will come to his predecessor. How do you think, in the meantime, the UK and the rest of the NATO alliance are going to handle this somewhat strange limbo period between prime ministers?
It is a difficult period, isn't it? Because Keir Starmer was determined to get the Defence Investment Plan out before the NATO summit, but there are obviously huge questions over that. So, as I was mentioning, you know, Donald Trump likes nothing better than kicking a leader when they're down, so you can see he might not miss that opportunity. But there is a lot of support, respect and indeed affection for Keir Starmer amongst European leaders. They believe that Keir Starmer has been absolutely steadfast in the UK's support for Ukraine. Important to say that every UK Prime Minister, Conservative or Labour, since the invasion of Ukraine in 2022 has been hugely supportive. But that has been really noticed, and everything you've been hearing from Friedrich Merz, from Emmanuel Macron, has been very, very supportive and appreciative of Keir Starmer on Ukraine. But they are all thinking the next guy's about to arrive. What is he thinking? And Andy Burnham has said, full square on defence, got to fund the Defence Investment Plan.
OK, well, let's pick up and talk about Andy Burnham. And it is technically still possible for someone to join the race, I think I'm correct in saying?
It is technically possible because nominations open on Thursday, and Al Cairns, the former Armed Forces Minister, has not yet said that he's pulling out. He set 5 tests for the new leaders, but the joke at amongst the Labour MPs is, has he even got as many nominees as he has tests?
Well, the working assumption then is that it will be Andy Burnham. And I know that you go around Westminster, you hang around outside committee rooms, Nick, and you like to kind of get the sense of what's happening and get the gossip on what's happening. So what are we hearing about succession planning from Andy Burnham and his team?
So obviously Andy Burnham is involved in what are called access talks. So access talks cover when there's a new government. So Liz Truss had access talks. Normally you'd have it before a general election, and the leader of the opposition, or indeed the leader of the third party, would meet the cabinet secretary, and then crucially the individual shadow secretaries of state would then meet the permanent secretary in the department they hope to run. The FT has been reporting that there has been some concern voiced by the cabinet secretary that we don't know who your cabinet ministers are, therefore they can't meet the permanent secretaries.
30 seconds, Nick. Any hints on who will be in Andy Burnham's top team, if indeed he is Prime Minister?
Well, we're hearing, could Ed Miliband be Chancellor? Not confirmed. Would Yvette Cooper stay on as Foreign Secretary? Would David Miliband be Foreign Secretary? What about this? Cathy Ashton, the former EU Foreign Minister for 5 years, knows a lot about Iran. Maybe she'll be the surprise candidate.
OK, well, Nick, thank you, as ever, for the political context with Nick Watt. And you can watch BBC News Night in about an hour here on the BBC News Channel. Welcome back to The Context on BBC News. Crowds are lining the streets of the Iranian capital Tehran for the funeral procession of the late Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who was killed on the first day of the US-Israel war on Iran in February. While revered by his supporters, Khamenei's regime was marked by political repression and crackdowns on any kind of dissent. After lying in state in Tehran's Grand Mosalla religious complex, Khamenei's coffin is now being transported along a 10-kilometre long route through the city. The procession is expected to last for more than 10 hours. Official funeral proceedings began on Friday, with 6 days of ceremonies culminating in his burial in his hometown of Mashhad on Thursday. Our chief international correspondent, Lise Doucet, is in Tehran on condition that none of her material is used on the BBC's Persian service, and these restrictions apply to all international media organisations operating in Iran.
In 6 days of public mourning, this is the spectacle Iran's leaders want the world to see. Their most loyal, their most religious. On this route charged with emotion, not just of grief, but also anger. The loudest colour in these crowds is red. Red for blood. And in Shia Islam, symbolising martyrdom and vengeance. Now, along with the old slogans of death to America, death to Israel, there are calls to avenge the assassination of their supreme leader. This is a pivotal political moment in the history of the Islamic Republic. I was here in 1989 for the funeral of its founding father, Ayatollah Khomeini, and the frenzy then was such that his coffin burst and his body spilled out into the crowd in its white shroud. The organisers don't want that to happen now, but they still want to send a message to their enemies outside and inside Iran that even in war, their revolution cannot be defeated.
And that was Lise Doucet, our chief international correspondent, reporting from the Iranian capital. Now, I just want to bring you up to date on the ongoing World Cup match between Portugal and Spain. And it is still 0-0 with just a few minutes left of regular time. Presumably there'll be some injury time added on to that before going into extra time if a goal is not scored in those few minutes remaining beforehand. Let's just show you pictures of fans. Let's go to Madrid first of all. And then similarly in Lisbon, crowds there watching their team and hoping for a winning goal. But this is the last 16 game, the round of last 16. So, of course, the winner of this will go through to the quarter-finals. We'll keep you up to date here on BBC News. Weight loss medication is now available in pill form in the UK. From today, people with private prescriptions for Wegovy can buy tablets from high street and online pharmacies for about the same price as the injectable version. The pills are not currently available on the NHS. Our health correspondent Sophie Hutchinson reports.
The weight loss pill arriving in UK pharmacies this morning. Just like the so-called skinny jabs, it curbs the appetite, but with no needles. And that's certainly the appeal for many patients like Funmi, one of the first in the country to get her pills this morning.
It does feel easier, and I think for the type of lifestyle I have, it's a lot more convenient for me, especially first thing in the morning, just before the school run, I can take the pill and I know that I'm done for the day.
16 million people have obesity in the UK, and pharmacies have had tens of thousands of inquiries already about the pills.
It's actually a lot of people who are new to these medications rather than looking to switch from injections to tablets. So that's telling us something about the injections weren't appropriate for those patients for whatever reason. So I think we're about to see a huge surge across people who are clinically eligible.
Like the injections, they're approved for use in people who are obese with a BMI of 30 or at least 27 if they have a weight-related condition. And these are prescription-only medicines and carry risks, including headaches and nausea, diarrhea or constipation. More seriously, eye problems and inflammation of the pancreas, a potentially life-threatening condition. But with proper medical advice, most experts recognise the power of these treatments, although they insist much more must be done to prevent obesity in the first place.
Pretty well everybody has a good intention to eat healthily today, but somehow that gets eroded when you walk down the high street and there are, coffee shops and cafes and muffins. That makes it really hard. And I think what we have to recognise is that until we change that food environment, we're just making it almost impossibly difficult for people to manage their weight.
The Wegovy pills are only available with a private prescription. As yet, there are no plans for them on the NHS. Sophie Hutchinson, BBC News.
Let's talk now to Dr. Jack Mosley, GP Registrar and author of Food Noise. Thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us. So essentially, what is the difference with the pills versus the injections? Is it simply about ease of taking them?
That's probably the key difference with these medications. They still contain that same core component, which is GLP-1. However, the GLP-1, it's very easily broken down in the stomach, so they've had to adapt it to make it more difficult to break down. But as they were discussing earlier, essentially, I think this is going to really increase the accessibility of these medications. They will potentially become cheaper over time. They're cheaper to store, and they will completely increase and widen the access to people who might be needle phobic or just be intimidated by using needles.
And if more people are inclined to take this medication because it comes in pill form, what do we know about the efficacy? These sorts of drugs haven't been around for really that long, have they? And what do we know about potential side effects and the efficacy?
Well, the class of GLP-1s, they've been around for around 20 years, but you're right in saying that this new the weight loss medications that have been prescribed at higher dose and this new generation of weight loss medications have not been around for that long at all. So the risks still do remain with these weight loss medications. There are some of the side effects do include nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, constipation. There are some more rare side effects such as gallstones, inflammation of the pancreas, and then there's some of these kind of downstream consequences that have potential as well, and that's things like muscle loss, lack of nutrition, so some degree of malnutrition, and then the final thing really is that once you stop these weight loss medications, that weight really does rebound extremely quickly compared to kind of conventional dieting.
Okay, Dr. Jack Mosley, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
OK, let me just take you back to the World Cup. And just as Portugal and Spain had gone into the added time portion of their game, Spain scored. So the score as it stands, Spain 1, Portugal 0, with I think 4 minutes left of added time. So if Spain can hold on defensively, then it looks like they will be going through to the quarterfinals, but I'm sure Portugal will be battling it out for a goal in the last few minutes. We're looking here at the fans, the Spanish fans in Madrid, jumping for joy a couple of moments ago when that goal was scored by Mikel Merino. And I think we can show the fans in Lisbon as well. Just coming up for you now. It's the agony and the ecstasy, isn't it, really, when it comes to all of these games. So on a day when the World Cup has been making headlines because of President Trump's comments and call to FIFA about the suspension of the US's star striker, here we are very much talking about the news from the pitch. Stay with us here on BBC News.
Hello. It's been a hot start to the new working week with temperatures widely reaching the 30s across a good chunk of the Midlands, central southern England, East Anglia and the southeast. The highest temperature I saw during the day, 33 across parts of the Greater London area. Further north, a big contrast in the weather. A lot of cloud in Scotland with rain into the northwest. That was courtesy of a weather front, and here it will continue to be quite damp through the night. Further patches of rain. Still some mist and murk and low cloud lurking around some of our Irish Sea coasts. It will be quite a warm night, temperatures eventually coming down to between 14 and 18 Celsius. So we're already off to a relatively warm start to the day on Tuesday. Still a lot of cloud for Scotland, still a few splashes of rain here, but the cloud should thin and break for Northern Ireland and Northern England with some sunny spells. Best of the sunshine for Wales, the Midlands, East Anglia, Southern England. Temperatures perhaps a smidge down, but 31 is still hot across the southeast of England. Beyond that, as we head into Wednesday, the sunnier skies should